Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
Membership means more with American Express Business Gold. Earn 4 times membership rewards points in your top 2 eligible spending categories every month, including eligible U.S. advertising purchases and select media, and U.S. purchases at restaurants, including takeout and delivery. What are you waiting for? Get the card that flexes with your spending every month. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Away the podcast. My name is Martin Wanless, and today you join us for something a little bit different as we look ahead to tomorrow's game at Manchester United by taking a look back at some of the games we've played at Old Trafford in the past and some of the connections between the two clubs as well. And of course, I'm not going to do that by myself, and so joining me are 3 very fine gentlemen. And first of all, we'll say hello to Gavin Henderson. How are you, Gav?
I'm good, mate. Very good. I'm looking forward to this one. Something a bit different. There's a big feel about this game, isn't there? When it's Manchester United, it doesn't matter if they're shite now. It's still Man U, innit? And I've got plenty of good memories, so I'm looking forward to it.
No, there's a few bits to dig into, a few memories to have a look back on. So we will enjoy doing that. And joining myself and Gav is Chris Wynn. Hello, Chris.
Hello, mate. Yes, I'm not sure how much I'm looking forward to this because, as I said, if anyone listened to the preview pod and talking to Tom White, I think we've won twice in the league since 1968. So not a fantastic record against United, but
well,
yeah.
if you want our overall record against Manchester United, and this is at Old Trafford, at the very first ground North Road, and at their second ground Bank Street, which is now the site of the BMX arena at the National Cycling Centre in Manchester, we've played 73, lost 43, drawn 18 and won 12. So, you know, if you're going to see where the odds are using history, you'd probably go for a home win, but we will see. Because also joining us today is somebody who, I'm not going to say he remembers Bank Street, but you'll certainly remember some games in the 60s that we can reminisce on, and one particular one in the 70s. It's our good friend Kelvin Beattie.
Morning, lads. Morning.
Morning,
Always
Kelvin.
happy to talk. I'm always happy to talk about us beating Man United.
Yeah, no, it's it doesn't come around very often at Old Trafford, so it's certainly good to reminisce on. And Old Trafford actually was built by Archibald Leach, which I hadn't realised until
didn't know that.
Started doing a little bit of digging. So there you go. Now, Gav, you were sort of saying this game has a big feel to it, and this is one that you look at when the fixtures first come out, and this to me is the first one that really is like, shit, we are back in the Premier League. Like every other game that we've had so far this season, we've played that team in the Championship in the last 15 or 20 years. This is one where it's like, right, it's time to get real, isn't it? This is actually on. This is happening. This is where we're at now.
Yeah. We've had people talking us down in the fact that we haven't played anybody yet. We keep getting that from opposition fans and stuff. And I would say that we've probably played better teams than Man United already, but it's still a big game. It's still a massive game. Old Trafford's probably one of the most, if not the most iconic stadiums in England. It's somewhere that countless teams have gone and been put to the sword over the years. But I've said this quite a bit on the pod recently, and I hate to repeat myself, but, you know, they're a club when I was a kid. They were almost invincible in my eyes. I remember watching them on the telly when they were in the Champions League. We didn't have Sky when I was a kid, So the only time I got to watch Man U, unless they were playing Sunderland, was on ITV in the Champions League. And they were just a team of absolute colossuses. And I know it's not the same now, but it does still feel like a massive game. And I'm really looking forward. Like I say, I think Sunderland at Old Trafford, when even back when Keane was, I remember going there, and we're going to get into games and stuff, but I remember going there when Keane was manager and we got beat 1-0, and going there and just the whole day, the occasion of like visiting Old Trafford was something that it almost Wembley like, actually. Like, obviously we've been to Wembley a few times in recent years, so it's the only thing I can really compare it to. The last couple of times I've been to Old Trafford, it's comparable to going to the biggest ground in the country. It's still something magic there about Old Trafford.
Just very, very quickly, Gav's got his question in the plural of Colossus for a start, but talking to Justin Moorhouse, he kind of chucked at me what your thoughts, what my thoughts were on Manchester United. And Gav started the ball rolling there, really, because Manchester United is an institution, isn't it? And it comes from the history. It comes from, the Munich disaster and the way that kind of that all played out, and Matt Busby and the history behind the club. But it is an institution, and it does have that aura when you come to play them, doesn't it?
Oh, it certainly does.
Go on. He chucked some shade at us there, so I've Googled it. The plural form of the noun colossus is colossi or colossuses. So I think you'll find that Google Gemini agrees with us, Chris.
I didn't say you were wrong. I just said you had a question. This question in it.
Well, colossal argument going on here.
We've been throwing shade at each other for days, Kelvin, about pronunciations. I knew that was coming. He's getting one back on us.
But regardless of what the correct form of the plural is, you are correct, because Man U, like, we all perceive Man U as this massive club, don't we? And they are, right? And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about why players would, because throughout the summer there was players who wanted to go to Man U, and people go, why do they want to go to Man U still? Why don't they want to go to Arsenal or City or even the Mags are after a couple, like Sesko? Mags were after him, and he went to Man U. And there is that reputation that we all grew up with of Man U winning the Champions League, dominating the Premier League, and being that immovable object for such an awful long time. And the kids, your kids will be the same, Chris. Like, my son can't understand why people really like Man U or really rate Man U. And it's a funny one in terms of how that perception's shifting. But of course, Sunderland fans of a certain age will remember that Manchester United, was it after we played them in the FA Cup, we drew 2-2 under Peter Rees, and we took them back to Roker Park. And at the time, Newcastle and Man U were battling for the title, weren't they? And basically, Man U were the only team that could pretty much stop the Mags from winning the league. And there was a very sort of good camaraderie between the Sunderland fans and the Man U fans. And to the extent that in the Roker End, the Man U fans unfurled a massive FTM banner at the end of the game. So, for me, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Man U because they stopped Newcastle doing something which would have made my life hell for months, if not years. But Kelvin, talking about Manchester United and the institution they are, you'll remember them being in the second division.
So, yeah, that one season that they had down in the second division, 1974-75. I mean, it was a real shock when they went down. A lot of people will remember the picture of the Dennis Law scoring the goal for City in the last throes of the game, and he just couldn't bring himself to celebrate. So they went down 1974-75, and we played them. We were second. They were top going into that game. It's still one of my favorite ever away games as a 16-year-old. What a place to go and visit. Totally agree with Gav. What stadium, first of all. Their fans there was always loads of them, and some of them, they had a reputation for causing trouble when they travelled away. And I'll be honest, I was just about to jump in and say on that 95-96 Cup tie, I went to the game at Old Trafford the twos each game, and they weren't as friendly there. You might be surprised to know. And they weren't as friendly there. But I can remember that banner coming out in the Roker End for the. But of course, they'd won the game by that point. It's easy to be magnanimous, isn't it? When
after you've won, it's
after
a
you've
lot
won,
easier.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But that game in '74, lads, I have to tell you, still one of my. We lost the game 3-2. It was voted their match of the season. There was 60,000 people crammed into Old Trafford, and this was before all the renovations and everything. There was a good, I'd estimate, about 10,000 Sunderland fans scattered all over the ground. And what a blooming game of football it was. Absolutely rip snorter of a game. Two top teams going at it. Fantastic, fantastic memories of that game. Always remember Stuart Pearson scored for Man United on 11 minutes, and the Stretford end started singing, "How did he win the cup?" Because obviously it's just a season or two after we'd won the FA Cup. And within 2 minutes, Billy Hughes had scored two, and we were singing back, "That's how we won the cup." It was an unbelievable game. Hughesy that day, man. He was great that day, Billy Hughes. But there was players on both sides. Lou McCarry for Man United that day. Boy, lad, he was some player when he was on him. He played really well. Ian Porterfield enjoyed himself that day, strutting and strolling around our midfield. And Pop Robson had a great game that day. He could have actually won the game for us, but he played really well, as did Bobby Kerr. The little dynamic bunny was all over the pitch that day. But it was a fantastic event, fantastic occasion. And I mean, to make you laugh, I was there in me boots and braces. As a 16-year-old, along with a load of other lads, and it was great fun from start to finish. And although we lost the game, it didn't actually feel like that. It actually felt like an honourable defeat, you know. And I really felt like we were going to go and do it that year, but we didn't. We finished fourth, and Man United went up and went forward from there. They kind of rebuilt themselves. So fantastic game that. I've got a mate who's a Man United fan. He's just a little bit older than me, and he still talks about that game. He still says that was a great memory of playing Sunderland. For sure. There's another game he talks about because he is a bit older than me, where Jim Baxter and Sunderland came, and Baxter absolutely ran the show for the first half, head and shoulders better than anybody else on the pitch. But it was nils each at half time, and Man United scored 5 goals in the second half, and so one of the few times we've absolutely been tonked down there, I would say. We haven't had that many absolute thrashings, but
don't say things like that, Kelvin. Come on, you know better than that. Jesus Christ!
Have a look at the recent last 20 years before you say that.
But a decade before that, there was a very famous FA Cup tie, wasn't it? I think 3-3 at Old Trafford. We'd drawn. Sorry, that was the 6th round. We drew the replay as well, and we got tonked. Since Kelvin says we never get tonked, we got tonked in the second replay, I think, of that tie at Leeds Road. So, you know,
I mean, Man United twice in that 63-64 ties. You know, they scored two goals in the last 2 minutes in the tie at Old Trafford, Charlton and Best, and then Bobby Charlton scored again in the home tie at Roker Park. He scored in the last two to the last minute of extra time, if memory serves me well. So they were dead lucky in 63-64. Call it luck, if you want. Aye, the hammered with Leeds Road, wasn't it? Huddersfield,
Was
5-1. I think we went 1-0 up. Nick Sharkey scored the goal, but aye. So that was at Tonkin. Yeah.
And Chris, you and I have talked a few times about that game in that first season back up under Dennis Smith. You're going over to Old Trafford. We had a couple of injuries. A young lad called Paul Williams gets his, I'm not sure if it was his debut or not, but it was one of his very first games. Chucked in at right back up against Lee Sharp. And Lee Sharp at the time was one of the most exciting, dynamic wingers in the top flight, wasn't he? He was superb, and he got absolutely roasted, didn't he?
Yeah, well, it's just very quickly about the 63-64 before we move on to this one. Just very quickly, there's two things I wanted to mention about that. There was the fact that Bobby Charlton wrote a whole chapter in his book about that those epic cup ties, and he was just saying it was some of the best games he was ever involved in. And the other one was, of course, when we talked to Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill said, he got, I think he got a lashing, didn't he, for listening to his listening to the replay on his crystal radio or under his duvet or something, and he's at the boarding school he went to, and he said he got caught and he got a good lashing for it, but he said he didn't regret it. He said he did after he saw the score, but he didn't regret it at the time because he wanted to listen how we were getting on. But the 1991. This was actually a huge one for Man United, if you remember, because a lot of people, and I've seen a couple of interviews about this. A lot of people go to the Mark Robins goal against Nottingham Forest that saved Fergie's job. That apparently he might have been sacked if they'd get knocked out the cup by Nottingham Forest, and Mark Robins scored the winning goal and put them through, and they went on to win the FA Cup and beat Crystal Palace in the final. But this game, and I've heard it said a few times in interviews, that actually against Sunderland, because they were struggling in the league at the time, that actually if we'd gone to Old Trafford and maybe done them over, that his job was, really kind of insecure, and he might have gotten the bullet at that point. So this was a huge game, and the fact that we'd beaten them in our first home game of the season, where Gary Bennett turned into a Brazilian centre forward and flicked it over Gary Pallister's head and slotted it past Les Seeley, I think it was at the time, and scored in the last minute. And actually, just on that, Dennis Smith always wondered why the hell Gary Bennett was where he was when he scored that goal, because according to Dennis Smith, he shouldn't have been anywhere near that position on the left wing in the last minute when we were drawn 1-1. But this game, I mean, you've said it there, Martin, that Lee Sharp was like the next George Best at this point, because Ryan Giggs was kind of a couple of years younger than him coming through, but Lee Sharp was like the everything. He was kind of the next big thing, and he was absolutely flying at this point. And it was, I don't think it was his debut as far as I can tell, but Dennis Smith threw Paul Williams in, who was a young up and coming defender who had the understudy to John Kay, which mustn't have been the easiest thing in the world, because you're not going to be battling out with John Kay, completely different type of defender. And he was. We were 3-0 down by half time, and I remember one of these goals. And I'm going off the top of my head; I haven't seen them actually, but I'm sure one of these goals, because I always remember a picture the next day in the paper. I'm sure it was a Mark Hughes kind of one of the bicycle kick or something, overhead kick he scored. I'm sure off the top of my head, but yeah, we were well beaten, and it was one of the few occasions that year that we looked out of our depth. And poor Paul Williams got hooked at half time for Paul Hardiman. It was pity John Kay was injured for patches during this season. But yeah, not a great memory from that season. But I think there was only this one in the Leeds game from memory we looked out of our depth in this season.
I was at that game. And for my sins, my brother and I took our wives and had a weekend in Manchester. And the weekend
smooth,
went
Kelvin,
well.
Very smooth.
Well, we're not together now, so it couldn't have been that smooth, I tell you. Lee Sharp that day, blooming heck, he was unbelievable. And I'd seen Paul Williams a couple of times play for our youths, and he was he was a fullback, but he was a footballing fullback. He was a handy enough lad, but Lee Sharp was on fire. And that was a great goal. Mark Hughes scored 2 goals that day. And the bicycle kick was some goal. Like you couldn't even even though it was against us, you were like, look, I'm looking at our young'uns saying, "Oh, I would have loved to have scored a goal like that." But the funny thing about that, I'm interrupting you with a stupid memory about that game. Half time, we're all gathered underneath the corporate boxes where they used to put the away fans, right? And there's this. He was a lad in the corporate box was just being an absolute knacker, like sticking 3 fingers up and no, and making all sorts of non-verbal signs. And then the next thing he opens the window of the corporate box and starts shouting down at the fans. And I always remember just sort of looking in this one pie sailed out from the morass of away fans and hit the window. It didn't go in, it sort of hit the window. And he kind of looked at it and laughed. And then the next thing, there was absolute volleys of pies getting hurled at him. And he's trying to shut the window and getting covered in blooming pies. It was the most entertaining thing about the game, to be honest. But we were absolutely murdered, lads. Absolutely murdered that day. We drew the second half.
We haven't had the best run at Old Trafford. There's positive games that do stand out, though. There was that game, I just remember, where we'd actually been relegated. Oh, no, sorry, we got relegated, didn't we? We kept a clean sheet and drew 0-0 at Old Trafford. Kelvin Davis actually had his one good game for Sunderland and got a point, but we still ended up going down. And then there was the game, remember when Steve Bruce was the manager and we drew 2-2 at Old Trafford, and Anton Ferdinand was playing against Man United. And
Yeah,
Rio,
I remember
Rio
that
was
game
on
well.
the bench, and he scored no goal, didn't he, in the last minute?
Yeah, on that one, I remember it well because I remember it was a tea time kickoff. I was only young, so I still lived at my mum and dad's, and they were on holiday. So I went to the pub to watch the match. Drank about 6 bottles of double Maxim, thinking that was great. Went back home after the game, slung a pizza in the oven and fell asleep on the sofa, and woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning with a black pizza in the oven still. I remember just, still half pissed, like running to the bin to get rid of it. Could have been dead. Could have burnt the house down. I just always remember that game. Not for the football.
Keep
We
it
actually
light,
did all
Gov.
right that
Keep
day,
it
if I
light.
remember rightly. Yeah, I remember the game pretty well, actually, probably because of that, if anything. We were really good. Darren Bent scored a great goal, didn't he?
He did.
He scored one from the edge of the box. And
Early on.
It was just one of them. Yeah, it was one of them days, though, where the old Man United kicked in at some point in the game. Like, you're thinking, oh, we've got them here, and then they scored really late on in the game, if I remember rightly.
Last minute.
Was it?
Last minute equaliser.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was obviously that own goal you mentioned. But yeah, Keane Richardson got sent off as well, I think, didn't he? For 2 yellows.
So he got sent off for like kicking the ball away, but it was like the most piss weak kicking the ball away you'll ever see. And Alan Wiley was the referee, and he couldn't wait to give his bloody second yellow card.
Well, Alex Ferguson at Old Trafford, it wouldn't be the first time a referee's done him a favour, would it? Let's be honest.
No,
But yeah, we had, the team we had that day, that was, when people talk about that really good Steve Bruce team, it was probably one of the only occasions we got the majority of them on the pitch when you look at it. Because Gordon was in goal, he barely played. We had Bardsley, Richardson, Sana, Turner, Ferdinand, Malbrandt, Cattermole, Jones, Bent and Reed, all on the pitch that day. I bet if you look back through that season, there won't have been many days where we did that. Because Craig Gordon had his injury problems. Sana was in and out the team in the second half of the season. Ferdinand wasn't always fit. Andy Reid wasn't always fit. So it was probably one of the only times we got our best 11 out.
No, it wasn't. Player for player. And it always, when you look back, and it kind of pisses me off that time, because player for player, we actually had a good side. And I really wish Lorixana had stayed for another season or two, because he was a colossus. He was a colossus, as Gav would say.
No, I would say colossuses if there was two of them.
Well, sometimes it appeared that there was. But he was superb, and a proper leader, a bit like Xhaka now, isn't he? He's a proper leader on the field, and yeah, I always thought that was a weird one that he left. I know we're kind of going off on a tangent there, but he left with like such little fanfare. He just almost sort of sloped off during the night, and that was it.
He was homesick, wasn't he? He did a podcast with us on the former version of this podcast. He did a podcast with us a few years ago and talked about that. Yeah, he was homesick, from what I believe.
But just quickly with this game, this goes into what Gav was starting off talking right at the front of this pod, where this was Manchester United for so many years, where you'd go into the last minute and if you were watching it as a neutral, you'd just know that Manchester United at some point would score in the later stages. And they had about 20 years of doing this.
Yeah.
Well, not just 20 years. I was just going to make that point. You go back to the 63-64 Cup games, and then in 1976, we played 3 games against them, trying to sort out a League Cup tie, and they scored last-minute goals in those ties as well, So there's a bit of a history, isn't there, of coming into the last knock-ins of a game and they get a goal. I think I remember Jeff Clark put the ball in the back of his net for the 76 tie to give them the draw. They scraped the draw when they should have gone out. We played really well that night.
It's one of the when I talk about Old Trafford being an intimidating sort of, this almost like mythical place that you head to occasionally. It was one of the hallmarks of Old Trafford, was that even when Man U didn't play particularly well, because of the sheer size of the place and the intimidation factor, that they would get points late in games as a result of that. And it has kind of lost that kind of feeling about it now. You watch games at Old Trafford now. I mean, obviously not Sunderland games, because this is the first time we've been there in a while. But you watch games there now and it just doesn't have the same feeling. But back then, that team was still winning cups and titles, and that's what great teams do, don't they? Even when they're not on their best form, they manage to eke points. And Sunderland were at their absolute best that night, and we still couldn't take 3 points away. And that shows you how good they were at the time.
But like we've seen it at Sunderland, haven't we, where the crowd is flat because the team's not doing things and the club's not right and things don't feel right, and the crowd can work against you to a little bit of an extent, can't it? Whereas if you look at Old Trafford in the 90s, it started off with those 2 goals that Steve Bruce scored against Sheffield Wednesday in very late on, and that kind of almost got them on a roll at home. And for years, you almost put your money on, if they were trailing or if they were drawing, they would get a goal in the last 5 minutes just because the crowd would roar them on and get them over the line. And
it would help that Fergie ended up with 4 strikers on the pitch as well, right?
Well, on occasion it did, but it was Steve Bruce, wasn't it, who got the 2 goals for Man U against Sheffield Wednesday. So he was chucking centre halves up and all sorts. But it was just that mentality, and like we've got it back now, haven't we? We've seen already this season with the late goals that we've scored at home, the difference the crowd can make when everyone's bloody behind you. And whatever's going on at Manchester United, things have obviously not been right off the field for a long time, and hopefully it stays like that for at least another week. We will take a very short break at that point, and we'll be back very soon.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Welcome back to How We're the Podcast, and we are taking a little bit of a preview of the Manchester United game tomorrow as we look back at some of the things that Sunderland have done at Old Trafford over the years. Now, we cannot really go too far into this podcast without going to 2014, because we've talked about a few negative things that have happened at Old Trafford and a few indifferent things, but 2014, twice in the space of 4 months, we had two of probably the best days we've ever had at Old Trafford. We had the League Cup semi where we got through the final with a penalty shootout. Then, of course, we had Gus Poyet's win as part of the miracle that he produced. David Moyes was in charge of Manchester United for the cup game, and then Ryan Giggs, who we mentioned earlier, was sort of in temporary charge, wasn't he, at Old Trafford when we came to play them in the league. But in terms of two games at Old Trafford, it's going to take a lot to surpass those two.
Yeah, it was probably one of the greatest nights I had supporting Sunderland, other than the playoff finals, I would say. Cried like a baby right at the end of the game. 9,000 was packing out the away end. Went into the ground pissed as a fart and came out sober just because of the emotional roller coaster that we'd been on. And before the game, I went down with a Jarrah branch, and I think nearly every branch in the northeast piled into Phil Bardsley's dad's social club in Salford. It was rammed full of Sunderland fans, and it was bouncing. The whole place was just set aside for us, and there was hundreds and hundreds of Sunderland fans in this club. They had food on and everything, and it was like a party beforehand, and just the atmosphere leading into the game was unbelievable. Got into the ground, and my best mate Matty, he didn't get in because he was too pissed, and I'm thinking, I was worse than him. How did I get in? And he missed the full game. He was in the cells for the full game just for being too pissed.
No.
So even now, I still wind him up about it. And say that, just because he missed the full thing. He missed one of the greatest nights we've ever had supporting Sunderland because he couldn't get in the ground. But and obviously the game itself was just an emotional rollercoaster, on par with probably that Charlton match and the playoff final, because we go into it on top. Evans gets the goal for Man United, which makes it level before half time, and then obviously it goes into extra time. And even though it wasn't the same Man United that we've just been talking about, the Man United that Ferguson had moulded into just a winning machine, because he'd basically built that team the season before, it was still kind of his team, and they still had that allure. And we all, you're just feeling like we're clinging on. And then, it's probably the worst goal ever, but Bardsley's goal, I still don't know how it went in. David De Gea must have had money on Sunderland because it was awful goalkeeping. It wasn't even a great shot, but it sort of flaps at it and it bobbles in past him. And the place went absolutely berserk. I think I ended up 5 or 6 rows in front. I genuinely, when you say that, you think, he's exaggerating. No, I genuinely do think I ended up 5 or 6 rows in front. I've never went that crackers when Sunderland have scored a goal. And just in typical Sunderland fashion, a minute later, they equalised, don't they? And it's there's that typical Sunderland again. A minute later, they bloody equalised. They never looked like equalising. And I think we maybe got a bit carried away, and maybe the players weren't switched on. And yeah, Hernandez scored the equaliser in the 120th minute. And then what followed was the worst penalty shootout of all time. It was terrible, wasn't it? I think it was, what was it, 2-1 in the end on penalties?
Yeah, 2-1.
Yeah, it was an awful penalty shootout. But the most important thing was that we won it. And Vito Minone saved the spot kick from, was it Raphael or Fabio? I can't remember. They were twin brothers, weren't they? It was Raphael.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Vito Minone will always go down as a Sunderland legend just because of that save. Because he sent Sunderland to Wembley with that save. And like I say, at the end of the game, completely sober by that point, just because of the ride we'd been on, crying my eyes out, knowing we were going to Wembley. And that was the first time we'd been to Wembley since that Charlton game, hadn't it? For a big game. So yeah, it was an amazing night, and that'll live long in the memory. I'll never ever forget that night. It was just, considering where we'd cut that journey we'd been on that season as well, by the way, because we'd started it so badly, looked like it was all going to go wrong. And then Gus Poyet just took us on this whirlwind, didn't he? And it included this cup run. And yeah, I'm sure you lads will have similar memories to me, but it was an amazing night.
Well, talk about you crying like a baby. I was obviously watching on TV here first thing in the morning, and my son he would have been maybe 7 or 8 months old. So he was sat in his little bouncer next to me watching the penalty shootout. Vito saves the penalty. I go absolutely fucking nuts, shouting and screaming, jumping about, holding things around. He starts blaring his eyes out and literally would not stop for about half an hour. He was so scared and traumatized. And my wife was like, well, what on earth are you doing? I was like, we've got to Wembley. And that did not pass as an excuse. But yeah, and Chris, only a few months later, we were back at Old Trafford. And Gus Poyet, this roller coaster journey that Gus Poyet had taken us on, because regardless of the League Cup final and all that sort of stuff, which incidentally we might still get awarded to be winners of that cup final if the charges against Man City actually come to any sort of fruition. So we could belatedly celebrate that. But we'd looked dead and buried at one point going into the closing stage of that season, and the Manchester United game was probably like the last one of that little run where you actually start going, shit, we're actually going to do this, because it was we were in need of a miracle, and Gus Poyet delivered it.
Such a bizarre season, like Gav said, and you, just on the incidents you said that, because my lad was about 4 months old at the time, and I had exactly the same experience for that Man United one, and then a few weeks later we played the Mags, and again I had exactly the same experience where basically, so my lad, when he was he's probably traumatized from being a baby when I was just screaming my head off in the house when we're beating the likes of Man United and the Mags, but
the two of them might have to go into counselling together, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. He'll be sat in a corner mumbling something about Barini and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, unbelievable season. And but people forget, that actually at the same time as we were getting to the League Cup final, we had a run to the quarter final of the FA Cup because we had that whole game straight after the cup final. But then during that run, when we went in the cup final and the quarter final of the cup, we went on a pretty horrendous run. We lost 7 out of 8 and drew the other one, which took us into that run at the end. And it started with that game away to Man City, where we basically had a run of we had to go to Man City, we had to go to Chelsea, and then we had Cardiff at home, and then we had Man United away. And we were bottom of the league going into that run, and we just thought there's absolutely no chance. Everyone just went, well, we had good fun at the cup final. We got to the quarter final of the cup. We've had our fun this season. Basically, we're absolutely dead and buried. And then that Man City game randomly gave us hope that Man City had to equalise, and we were gutted we didn't get 3 points because Wickham scored late on there. And then we'll go to Chelsea and get that ridiculous result being was it the first team to beat Mourinho at Stamford Bridge or something like that. And then we stuffed Cardiff, and we just couldn't believe what was happening after that run of just getting beat week after week. And then that Man United game, we'd lifted ourselves to 17th, and that Man United game was basically the one that pretty much confirmed it. 75,000 at Old Trafford, and like you said earlier, gigs had taken over, but we didn't just beat Man United on this day. It wasn't kind of backs to the wall stuff. I think Johnny keeps mentioning every now and again the goal that never was in this game, Barini, where it was just a fantastic move from our own. Yeah. Superb. And Poyet set us up, and there was odd moments in games where we had a move like that, and we'd take it from our goal kick and string loads of passes together and suddenly get a shot at the end of it. But yeah, this again, but it was almost. And this is always the thing with Sunderland that we're trying to break at the moment. When we get on a run like this with Sunderland, as Sunderland fans, we always think, well, it can't go on any longer. Like, we're going to Old Trafford now. It's got to end now. We're not going to beat Man United. Like, right, okay, that ends now. We'll go and try and win the next game. I think it was West Brom at home. But no, we went to Old Trafford and we were absolutely brilliant. And you could argue Man United were this was kind of the start of the decline of Manchester United and Giggs being in charge. And, I think we've all seen the videos that he didn't seem the most charismatic of fellas when he was manager of Wales, I think it was. But yeah, absolutely brilliant day. And if you consider we'd beaten, like I said earlier, we'd beaten them twice in the league since 1968. And this was kind of the most recent one. Or we hadn't beat them before this since 1968. And then we went to Old Trafford when we really needed it to kind of secure our survival at the bottom. And then to go, like, to be part of, winning 3 off the bounce in the Premier League, which we hadn't done too often, to be fair, over the years. But yeah, brilliant performance. And another one out the blue, though. And they usually do come out the blue at Old Trafford.
No, they do. And, at the start of that run, we were 7 points adrift with 6 games left to play. Like, that's how good that escape was. Sometimes kind of gets forgotten just because of how dramatic it was. But to make up that amount of points in those games was some achievement. Right, I thought what we do next is move away from actual fixtures at Old Trafford. And I've got a challenge for the 3 of you. So I want you to close any StatCat web pages down, or close the books that you've got open, because we are going to visit players who have played for Manchester United and Sunderland. So you're going to have 5 rounds between the 3 of you, right? You're each going to take a turn to name a player who has played for Manchester United and Sunderland. I have got a list of every player who has played for the 2 clubs. They've got to have played a first-team game. It can't be, he was a youth player, didn't play a game, came to Sunderland or anything like that. I've divided them up. Some players get 1 point, so the really obvious players get 1 point. Less obvious, 3. A little bit more obscure get 5. And very obscure get 10.
Chris is sitting scripting down here. I'm not having that.
He's scripting.
I'm not allowed to put me. Okay, I'm stopping. I'm trying to think.
Right.
I'm thinking.
Look him up.
So actually, we'll do 6 rounds because each of you can take a turn at going first. So you've got to see who gets the most points. So Gav, we'll start with you. Name a player who's played for both Manchester United and Sunderland.
Chris Turner.
Chris Turner. On my list, Chris Turner will get 3 points.
Ooh, take that.
Ooh.
Take that.
Kelvin.
Jim Holden.
Jim Holden. 5. Good lads. I was waiting for somebody to say that one. And Chris.
Someone who was in Alex Ferguson's first starting 11, Peter Davenport.
Peter Davenport for 3. So Kelvin takes that round.
Oh, well done, Kelvin.
Right. Kelvin, you can start this one off.
Colin Waldron.
Oh, now where is
I haven't
Colin?
got a chance against Kelvin.
Colin Waldron is a 10-pointer.
Oh, damn it.
How rare.
Chris.
He's thinking.
He's got his thinking face on.
Is it me? Sorry, I didn't hear you say it was me. Oh, I haven't got a 10-pointer. I haven't got a 10-pointer.
It's hard, isn't it?
It is. I haven't got a 10-pointer. I'm just gonna have to go for someone we've met. My brain's gone blank. I'm just gonna have to go for Phil Bardsley.
Phil Bardsley is very much a 1-pointer. Gav, pull out 10-pointer out of the bag. Come on, Gav, 10-pointer.
Oh, I'm not getting a 10-pointer. Like I've never even heard of Colin Waldron. Never mind come up with something as good as that. Liam Miller.
Liam Miller gets you 3.
That's a good one.
Right.
I thought I would be better than that. Never mind. That'll do.
There you go. We'll do one more round. Chris.
I'll go David Bellion.
David Bellion is a shout. Whoever got him. I have got him on 3 points.
3 for David Bellion.
Hey.
Bloody hell.
It's my opinion.
Bloody hell.
Can't say it's right or wrong.
I am.
I mean, I'm not getting much better than that. Like, that's difficult, that one.
Points.
See, we won it.
3 measly points for it.
He's fuming. Louis Saha.
Louis Saha, knowing me, knowing you, Saha. That was a 1-pointer.
Really?
All right.
I thought that was pretty obscure.
And Kelvin.
Oh, well.
Oh, man.
Kelvin's aced this.
You know, I've lost this lad's name. He played for them. Eddie Reynolds or Turnbull. I'm trying to remember his name.
Can't be getting points for 2 names.
Right. You're being a bit picky
double
there.
barreled.
Are you in the huff? Because you're getting walloped here.
Yes.
I'll go for Andy Cole. I cannot remember.
Andy Cole. Andy Cole gets you 3 points. So, Andy Cole gets you 1 point. Sorry. So Chris wins that round. Right. So
making this up as he goes along, eh?
No. I can talk you through me players. So the 1-point players were Dwight York, Andy Cole, Ahmad, Louis Saha, Danny Welbeck, Johnny Evans, John O'Shea, Wes Brown, Phil Bardsley, Kieran Richardson, and Danny Simpson. The 3-point players were Fraser Campbell, Adnan Januzaj, Darren Gibson, Paddy McNair, Paul McShane, Peter Davenport, David Healy, Danny Higginbotham, David Bellion, Liam Miller, and Chris Turner. The 5-pointers were Ashley Fletcher.
Oh, I was going to say him and all. Never mind.
Mark Lynch, Rhys James, who played for us in League One, Donald Love, Jimmy Nicol, Jim Holton, who Kelvin got, Peter Barnes, and Terry Cook.
Of course.
And then the 10-pointers were Alan Foggen, Colin Waldron, which Kelvin got, Ernest Taylor, George Ainsley, Robert Bonthron, Hugh Morgan, Harry Williams, George Livingston, and William Longair. And apparently they are all of the players who have played first-team football for both clubs. So
not as many as I thought, actually.
No, there's not. I was surprised. I thought there'd be more.
Ernie Taylor was the boy I was thinking of.
Of course he was, Kelvin. Now I've read how
he went there. He actually went there. He's held in quite high esteem, Ernie Taylor, there, because he went right after the air disaster.
Yeah,
and helped them get back up on their feet. And then he was about to be transferred to us, and he went there, and then ended up coming to us later on. He's held in quite high esteem. But that's no good if you cannot remember his name, though.
No, part of the game is you need to remember the names that you're talking about, to be fair. There you go. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. It's been a little fun jaunt through a bit of history between Sunderland and Manchester United, a bit of a mixture between a regular preview podcast and a very short version of One This Week, for those of you who like to listen to One This Week on the Monday. But we will be back tomorrow with a full match preview ahead of the game at Old Trafford. So thank you to Gav, Chris, and Kelvin, and thank you to everybody who's listening. And of course, we will have all of the content you could want ahead of the match over at rokerreport.sbnation.com. But until then, it's goodbye from us.
Podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan. $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.